Hi, I'm Katie Moussouris, Senior Security Strategist in the Security Development Lifecycle Team at Microsoft.
Good morning, I'm Jose Nazario. I'm Manager of Security Research at Arbor Networks.
Jose, thanks for joining us here at BlueHat. So your talk is about politically motivated denial of service attacks. So tell me about cybercrime.
Sure. So in my job, we at Arbor, we help backbone providers protect their own backbone and their customers. A lot of that, the attacks that they face are driven by botnets. And botnets basically provide a platform for all sorts of attacks. So large-scale ID theft, phishing, denial of service attacks, spamming, etc. So I spend a lot of my time looking at development in that space and on the technology side of things, and who's acting and who they're striking.
So who is acting right now? I mean, cyber warfare is sort of the buzzword of the day. You know, certainly the current administration is very concerned with it, stepping up our cybersecurity efforts. And so, you know, who are the big actors right now?
Up until about a year or two ago, it was largely constrained to the former Soviet Union, China, and the U.S. Since then, it's really exploded quite a bit. So we have seen attacks both within Russia and then, of course, between Russia and the former Soviet Union, most notably Estonia in 2007 and Georgia in 2008. We've also seen attacks in China against, for example, dissident groups, against outsiders, even against the U.S. So, for example, the 2001 Hainan spy plane incident, where we saw the Honker Union from China launch attacks against U.S. government properties. Since then, we've seen them really, really grow all over the place. So many people are probably familiar with the attacks in Iran from this summer following the election there. We've seen them even within the U.S. We've seen them lately in the U.K. It's really a global problem in just the past couple of years. This comes down to the fact that we're seeing the internet used as a communications mechanism for dissident groups, for critics, and for opposition parties. And there are people who really want to shut them down or intimidate them, and using online means to basically prevent them from acting.
So are you seeing a lot more, you know, sort of whoever is in power trying to silence the opposition, or do you actually see the, you know, sort of political groups that are trying to oust the people in power using denial of service or other type of cyber attacks to attack the folks in power? Which direction is it going?
The bulk of the attacks that we see are a larger power against either an internal critic or dissident or an external adversary. So, for example, basically Moscow versus Tbilisi, or Putin and his supporters against, say, Kasparov and his supporters. Those are the general trends that we see. So, for example, the Democratic Voice of Burma, which is a Burmese exile group, both made up of Burmese exiles as well as their supporters, in organizing protests against the ruling military junta there, have come under various forms of attack, including defacements, having their sites basically knocked offline by denial of service attacks, etc., have been infiltrated as well online as a means of basically silencing that dissident voice. We've seen newspapers, for example, in Kazakhstan, which are critical of the government, coming under cyber attack both within Kazakhstan, even when they moved outside, coming under attack as well. So those are the bulk of what we see. The Iranian protests, which were essentially, you know, supporters of sort of the minority position against the government, that's pretty rare, and clearly was not very effective.
So are you seeing that the groups who are doing most of the attacking, are they utilizing botnets that they have cultivated over, you know, some period of time, or are they using, you know, some other means?
It depends on the location and on the region. We have seen some long-standing botnets within the former Soviet Union, for example, that have been used against either newspapers that are critical of some of the government or government-sponsored organizations come under attack from those botnets, or, you know, then they go on to attack, say, gambling sites or other extortion sites. We have also seen what appear to be outsiders basically request their assistance or maybe even pay for their assistance. We have also seen situations where people volunteer their PC to actually participate in these attacks. People have generated scripts and tools that they can use.
Rather than SETI at home, it's, you know, cyber warfare at home.
Basically,
it's
yeah,
kind of
which is, you know, and the draw is, you know, you can sort of picture the draw, right, where it's, well, I'm just as upset as you, and I want to be a part of this effort. I will sign up and do, volunteer my PC, my bandwidth for this.
Have you seen people from other countries volunteering to help, some country very far away, that volunteering their PCs for this purpose?
On occasion, indeed, we have. So we have seen, for example, Russian language users, and most concentrated in the former Soviet Union outside of Russia, sort of attacking in Georgia and Estonia, for example. We did see a lot of that as well this summer against the Iranian government, where we saw, for example, people standing up tools and sharing these page reboot scripts, for example, to basically flood Iranian government sites. But that's it's not very common, actually.
So it seems like you guys have a lot of really good data to work from, which leads me to believe that the attacking parties are not doing a whole lot to obfuscate their activities. Do you think that that is something that is going to change, that it's going to be a lot harder to track where these attacks are coming from? And obviously you'll be able to see where they're going to, but...
We have seen some movement towards that. So, for example, in the Georgia campaign last year, we saw tools, dedicated malware that had no CNC. It would run, it would flood a government site and then just shut down after a few hours. Nothing you could do to stop that. So we have seen sort of the adoption of that. But right now, most of the focus is on basically more botnets, bigger attacks, and on the low end, essentially easier to use tools so that a volunteer can just basically sign up without having to be very technically savvy, just either navigate to a page or grab a tool and click attack, and now they're part of the cyber army. But I think that might actually be one of the things we have to watch out for, because if we can successfully disrupt their organization and defend a territory that way, then they need to begin hiding that.
So how would you suggest that, given the current landscape and the current level of sophistication of some of these attackers worldwide, how would you suggest that we or anyone else who wants to protect themselves, how would they do that?
There's a number of different ways. So we are seeing a lot of governments around the world following what they saw in Estonia, then Georgia, and then the U.S. and South Korea this summer, begin to examine how do we consolidate and protect our national government sites, for example. And so they're looking at basically how they can provide an outsourced attack defense mechanism. But that still doesn't deal with, for example, the millions of PCs out there. We are seeing more and more ISPs around the world, in the U.S. and Australia, the Netherlands, three major sort of centers of this, begin to identify zombie-infected PCs and notify the users, hey, you're infected, we can help you clean up. And that's not just stopping these attacks, but really all sorts of other attacks that might affect those users. So people are sort of, I think, attacking on both ends of the spectrum, and clearly we're working with many others around the world to shut down those servers and disrupt them, such that the infrastructure for these attacks basically starts to go away.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate having you here. I'm looking forward to your talk.
Thank you, Katie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks.